Right, we're now live, Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this remote meeting of the Outer South Community Committee. My name is Councillor Neil Dawson, and I will be chairing today's meeting. The Outer South Community Committee covers the wards of Arsene, Robin Hood, Morley North, Morley South and Rothwell, and is a committee where councillors have an opportunity to discuss and make decisions about services and priorities for our local area. We also consider funding applications regarding local community projects and youth activities. I would like to start today's meeting by confirming that today's community committee meets the requirements of the council's constitution, even though members are in remote attendance, and that members of the public are able to view via the live webcasting. As we begin the meeting, could I ask all attendees to mute their microphone unless I invite them to speak? This will avoid disruption from background noise. Could I now invite members to introduce themselves and mute your microphone once you've introduced yourself? I'll start with Councillor Lisa Mulheron.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lisa Mulheron, Arsene, Robin Hood ward.
Now Councillor Karen Renshaw.
Councillor Karen Renshaw, Arsene, Robin Hood ward. Thank you, Chair.
Now Councillor Finnegan.
I'm Robert Finnegan. I'm a councillor for Morley North ward.
And Councillor Gettings.
Councillor Bob Gettings, representing Morley North ward.
Councillor Hutchison.
Thanks, Neil. Councillor Hutchison, Morley North.
And Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Judith Elliott, Morley South ward.
And last but not least, Councillor Kidger.
Lynn Kidger, representing Morley South. Thank you.
Right. Can we now move on to the agenda items? I'll start with item 1, appeals against refusal of inspection of documents. Over to you, Andy, if you can take us through this.
Okay, thank you, Chair. With no appeals against the refusal of inspection of documents. Under agenda item number 2, there are no items which require the exclusion of the press and public. Under item number 3, there are no late items of business as such, but there is some supplementary information for the finance report, which has been sent to members prior to the meeting. There's also going to be published the appendix to the update report, which was missed in error, which details a social media update.
Right, thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 4. Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare?
Any items to declare under item 4?
I suspect my colleague Councillor Hutchison has. I'm not sure where he is.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
thought he had. I thought it'd been one they had.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chair. Yeah, I've on the funding application for the Morley Town Centre Management Board and for the funding for the Morley Arts Festival declaration of interest, please. I've spoken to Andy, who will be putting me into the waiting room when those items are discussed.
Right. Thank you, Andy.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Hutchison. And I'll assume there's no more. Moving on to agenda item 5, apologies. We do have apologies from Councillor Garner. And then agenda item 6, open forum. We've not received any submissions for the open forum today, Chair.
Andy.
Sorry, Councillor Elliott, have you got?
Yeah, could I just say, I am on the board of Morley Elderly Action, but I don't know if that comes into pecuniary interest.
It's not a pecuniary interest, Chair, but,
I didn't think so.
we can register it as another interest.
Thank
Thank you,
Sorry about
you,
that.
Judith. Yeah, we'll register as another interest, but not a pecuniary one. Right, thank you. No items under open forum then, Andy?
No, Chair, there's been no submissions this time.
No submissions, right, thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which are the minutes of the meeting of the 23rd of November 2020. Can I go through the minutes in the time fashioned way of page by page? You can shout out if there's any issues. We'll start off on the first page, which is page 7. Any issues? I hear nothing yet. Page 8. Any issues? Silence, no. Page 9, any issues? Page 10. And finally, page 11. Take it from that there are no issues in the minutes and people accept them as a true and correct record.
I move it, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Renshaw. The only comment I would make, Andy, is in the date of the next meeting is obviously today's date. It's incorrect in the minutes, but there we go.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make an amendment there.
Right, we'll move on then from the minutes of the meeting, the last meeting. Right, we'll move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is a presentation a delivery presentation consultation, particularly looking at Homely, Care Home and Richmond Hill. I believe we have at least two guests to present on this. Can I first of all welcome Councillor Venner and Kath Roth as well as Director of Adult Care. Do you want to start off, Fiona, introducing the item?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you for well, the floor's yours then, Fiona. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah. I'll just make some introductory comments and then I'll hand over to Kath, who can talk about this in more detail. Before we start, I just wanted to be really clear that consulting on closing care homes is not an option that anyone considers lightly. Closing down services is not the reason I came into politics from a background of delivering health and social care services. And neither is it why Kath and her team became social workers. The proposal, which is currently out to consultation, is entirely because the council was looking at a deficit next year of 119 million, half of which is directly attributable to COVID, and half of which is the result of 10 years of austerity and cuts to council funding. The council has lost 2 billion of funding since 2010. In our budget proposals, children's services and adult social care have been protected as much as is possible. Our focus has very much been, as an executive board, on making the savings we need to without causing a detrimental impact either to people who use our services and our fantastic staff. The consultation currently happening around Homely House and Richmond House, Kath will outline in the summary that with regard to Homely in your patch, we have another council-run care home very nearby and a range of good and outstanding care homes also in the very near vicinity. The executive board report also refers to the extra care housing scheme to be delivered in Rothwell. And in addition to the financial context of the council, this consultation is very much taking place in the context of less demand for care homes, but both nationally and locally, and an increased demand for extra care housing and an increased preference for people to be supported at home with home care in place. That was the case before COVID, but is even more the case now. So that's very much the context that this consultation is happening in. It's the context of the council needing to make significant savings and also a decreased demand for people living in care homes. So with those brief comments, Chair, I will hand over to Kath. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Councillor Venner. Right, hand over to Kath now, Kath Roth.
Thank you, Councillor Dawson and Councillor Venner. So I'm Kath Robb, I'm Director of Adults and Health, and I'll just take you through the headlines from the report that's in front of you. As Councillor Venner has outlined, we're facing an unprecedented financial challenge, and part of that has required the Directorate to identify a significant amount of savings. In doing that, of course, our budget strategy is always as much as possible to try and do things smarter, more efficiently, more effectively, so we don't have a direct impact on customers or citizens. But we do get to a point where we start to have to consider some of those things, and the proposals affecting Richmond House and Homely House is one of those proposals. So it isn't a service cut, as in people are potentially losing their service, but it is a service change proposal about how somebody might receive their care and where. So as Councillor Venner has said, for a long time, we've been reviewing our approach to supporting older people as part of our Better Lives strategy. And older people are very clear, as much as possible, they prefer to live in their own homes for as long as possible. Also looking at new models of care and support, such as extra care, which is like the Windlesford Green new development that you have in your ward, sorry, in the Rothwell ward. One aspect of people making those active choices is that the demand for residential care has fallen, and that impacts on our in-house services as much as it does the independent sector. So our occupancy levels over the past 5 years have been dropping and dropping and dropping. And so it makes our in-house homes much more expensive to run. And that is why the two provisions, the two homes have been put forward for potential closure. So Richmond House is a short stay facility. It's 20-bedded units situated in Farsley. It offers short-term care and support, planned respite, and can be there as a resource to prevent hospital admission. The other one, which probably will be the focus of this afternoon, is Homely House, which is a long stay residential care home situated in Rothwell. So it's 29 beds. And we do have two in-house homes, as Councillor Venner mentioned. We have Dolphin Manor as well, which is 1 mile away from Homely House. The reason we've chosen to put forward Homely for closure, it is by far the much older home, and it's smaller as well. So closing that facility, the full year effect would save £789,000, which is a significant saving. So that is the recommendation that I put towards the Executive Board. And obviously we're undergoing a period of consultation with both residents and a wider public consultation. That concludes at the end of next week. And we will be looking at what people have said and taking the outcome of all of that consultation to the June Executive Board with a view to making a recommendation for closure or not. So in terms of the process, if we were to recommend closure, I'll just talk you through that process. So we are sadly rather experienced at doing this, but some of that experience means that we do this carefully and thoughtfully. So we have a dedicated assessment and transitions team that is allocated to work with everybody who is a resident in the affected home. They talk to that individual, their loved ones and families about their choices for suitable alternative care. There is the ability to offer people another in-house home, either in Rothwell or our remaining additional 3 homes that we have elsewhere in the city. Some people choose this as an opportunity to actually move nearer to their relative, because relatives and where people live aren't always the same thing in terms of proximity to each other. We offer a care guarantee so that nobody will end up paying more if they need to move to an alternative home. And people who lack capacity, so people living with dementia, can have access to an independent advocate as well to help them with working out what move would be in their best interests. In all of that, we undertake very careful risk assessments to make sure that the clinical and therapeutic needs of those directly affected are responded to appropriately as well. Sometimes we find that actually people's needs have advanced to such a level that actually their next move might be nursing care. Otherwise, there is residential care available in that proximity. And I think within your papers, I can't remember if we've outlined some of the options that are around, but there are 14 care homes within 5 miles of Homely House. That includes Dolphin Manor. 8 are residential, 6 are residential and nursing. Of those homes, 1 is outstanding, 9 are rated good, 4 require improvement, and 7 of the homes that are rated good or outstanding also offer specific support to people living with dementia. So although this is a really tough proposal, there are viable, good quality alternatives in the neighbourhood of Homely House, which we hope people would be able to make a choice that meets their particular needs. And I'll pause there and take any questions.
Thank you, Kath. Right. Do we have any members wishing to ask questions? I can see your hand is raised, Stuart, so you by all means go first.
Thanks, Chair, and please do intervene at some point if people need to come up for air, because I could go on for a long time on this one. It's just to cover a few points in terms of the council's position, in terms of why we're at the point where they are wanting to close a care home. Because one of the things that's been mentioned is how residential care demand has dropped. And there is a question mark over whether there is less demand for residential care, full stop, or whether there is now less demand for residential care over our experience over the past 12 months with COVID, where a residential home was often the last place people wanted to send their loved ones to. But actually that market might change. And sometimes demand for residential care might be because people aren't confident that there is good quality residential care in the vicinity where they live. And one of the things that Homely House does do is deliver really good quality residential care. But there are very few local authority run residential care homes left. And it was basically admitted that one of the reasons why Homely House had been selected to be closed rather than another home somewhere else in Leeds is that Rothwell was lucky enough to have 2 local authority run homes, and therefore it was implied we could afford to lose one because there was one left. However, that home which has been left is a home which the council proposed to close several years ago. And actually, officially, the council are still due to close it, because the last time the home got discussed at executive board level, they said they were going to close it. And ever since then, I've been wanting to secure a permanent future for Dolphin Manor. And we have just basically been told, well, there are no plans to close it. Therefore, it exists. Therefore, it is open. But actually, we need to have a little bit more security and surety about the permanence of our care homes. And previously, when Dolphin Manor was selected for closure, we were told then that the building itself had far less investment put into it than Homely House had, because Homely House had ensuite toilets, which is something which Dolphin Manor did not. And now we're told, well, Homely House is a much older building and therefore is more deserving of closure than something which is more modern. But we have been told previously has worse facilities. So there's a little bit of confusion there, which it would be helpful if adult social care could explain that one. And then there's the other bit about there are 14 homes within a 5-mile radius. Now that says to me that actually there is a demand for residential care because there are 14 other establishments that have been set up to deliver that demand. And one of them is a very modern care home at Alton Manor in my patch, but it's also quite a pricey option as well. And one of the things that I think we need to take into consideration, especially with the pressure that there is on social care budgets, is that we need to have a sustainable local care market. And that includes having a mixed economy where there are council-run provision, where there is private provision, and where there is independent sector provision. And if the council has made a decision that it's going to withdraw completely from the care sector, as it has done with home care, and that we are looking to close all of our homes eventually, because, as was pointed out, the cost of care delivered by council is higher, although, of course, I'm sure it could be made much more reasonable if reforms were made to how we deliver that within our own homes. The question remains, the care market is very, very precarious at the moment, and we have calls from the private sector to say that they could very soon go out of business and quite a few private homes could close. And that would mean there would actually be a shortage of places for people to go to. The 14 care homes that have been mentioned, there's been no mention of how full they are. So that, you might actually not be able to move to an alternative accommodation that you choose to have, should you not be able to access the one which is closest to you and your family. And that's the key aspect here about keeping Homely House open. So my final question really isn't really one for the officers, it's one for the Labour councillors here, which is, at the last budget meeting, the Liberal Democrat councillors responsible for Rothwell and where this care home is, did put a budget amendment in, which was okayed by the council's finance department, where we would have access to adult social care reserves to enable the home to be kept open for a further year, so that perhaps if the council isn't interested and doesn't want to run it in a different manner, could actually enable an independent care option that's community run to happen. We did this with Dolphin Manor. We proved that we could actually run it as a business, and then the council decided to withdraw once the private sector had opened alternative accommodation. Now that accommodation cannot absorb what would be lost if Homely House closed, I suggest that the council should be looking again to working in partnership with the community to keep the facility open. And that's my ask today.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. Before I ask Kath to respond, are there any other members? I can see Councillor Finnegan. Did Councillor Chapman did you have your hand raised, Councillor? No. Councillor Finnegan then, please.
Well, really, it's just to follow on, Chair, as soon as we've got Councillor Venner here and we've got Cathroff here at this particular point. Is Knoll Manor in Morley under any similar threat? Nice, easy, straightforward question.
Right. Right. Can I ask Kath to respond, particularly to Councillor Galton's points? And I'll bring Councillor Venner in as well if she wants. Yeah.
Right, yeah, so I will do. Hopefully I've managed to jot down all of them, but if I miss anything, please come back to me and I'll try and answer. So demand for residential care has been falling for years. COVID accelerated that. To a degree, it has recovered for those individuals who seek support from the council. And the people that appear to be staying away are people who fund their own care. We have a model that is nationally used to forecast the demand for different types of care based on population prevalence. And that tells us in the Rothwell ward, there is an oversupply of 119 beds for residential care. So I don't think there would be a concern about having sufficient local supply if a 29-bed home was to close. why did we choose Homely over Dolphin Manor? So we've had regular rolling stock condition surveys looking at both homes, and it is the advice from the professionals around stock condition and assets that by far the one that is in the neediest state is Homely. I think there's a 20-year difference between that and Dolphin Manor. So it is the stock condition that has prompted picking Homely as the one recommended for closure, plus the fact it is a smaller home, whereas Dolphin Manor is, I think it's 35 beds, so it's a bigger home. In terms of the occupancy levels of independent sector homes, they do vary, and if you want to, we can get that information for you to profile what the different occupancy levels look like. But I can reassure you it is a very rare home that has 100% occupancy and not availability. Obviously, any home closure is a managed process, so it's not, you know, and at the moment we've got 16 people in Homely House. It's not 16 people all suddenly rushing out all at the same time. So I'm reasonably confident people would find occupancy in the home of their choice. In terms of the remaining homes, if these two were to close, that would leave 3 left. So that would be Dolphin Manor, Knoll Manor and Spring Gardens up in Otley. I can say it would be my professional advice to the council not to close any more homes. I think we've gone as far as we should and could, and I always prefer to have some skin in the game in terms of retaining that expertise, but also to have some flexibility in times of challenge. And that could be any challenge from, I don't know, somebody else's care home has flooded and they need to move people quickly, to as we've done in Dolphin Manor, trialling new models of care with people with living with dementia who need a short-term stay. So there is something about the importance of retaining expertise. So I can only give you a professional opinion, and obviously ultimately the decision would be a political decision, but that would be my recommendation to Councillor Venner.
Right. Thank you, Kath. Councillor Venner, do you want to add any comments on?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I just wanted to make the point that the consultation on this is open till the end of March, and we will consider all the points that are raised by you as members and by members of the public before a report goes to the June Executive Board. I would reiterate a couple of points Kath's made. I'm sorry if this is repetitive, but I think it is important to say that there is a falling demand for residential care, and there has been, as Kath said, for a number of years. It isn't just reluctance of people to move into care homes because of what's happened in care homes over the pandemic. And I also wanted to just reassure people that we have not considered any other home care closures in this process that we've been through as a political cabinet and as a cabinet with Tom's team as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. Are there any other members wish to make a comment or ask any questions? Yeah. Well, can I thank Kath and Councillor Venner for coming along, and they just to reiterate, the consultation closes a week on Friday, I believe, getting the correct date, and then there's a process to go through for the home. Right. Thank you for coming on. We'll move on because we've got a lot
actually,
to
Chair.
Thank
Sorry?
you.
Sorry, Chair. Just to confirm, given that we still have COVID restrictions, what is the approved formula for receiving petitions by the consultation deadline?
It's a good question.
Could we find out?
We could find out. Is that one that could pass over to Andy to find out? Andy Booth?
Yeah,
Chair.
I'll pass it on to the relevant officer after the meeting, Chair.
Right, thank you, Andy. Yes, we'll do that, Councillor Galton, yes. I'd like to move on because we've got a busy agenda. Agenda item 9 next. We're looking at the census is coming down very soon. And we have a guest presenter in, I believe, Scott Martin. Are you on the call, Scott?
I am, yes, hello. Hi everybody, thanks for hosting me today. I'm going to be,
Scott, yeah.
Cheers. I'm going to be giving you a very brief talk about the census. So I would normally do this with a presentation, but I will sort of do it without, but I will talk through the slides that I otherwise would have used. So as has been said, my name is Scott Anthony Martin, and myself and my two colleagues, Denise and Elaine, we share the census operation basically within Leeds as engagement managers. So it's our job to make sure that as many people as possible complete the census, with particular points of emphasis on communities that are less well represented. So for example, just recently, I've been putting together a suite of 9 different events for refugees and asylum seekers so that they can be part of the census programme as well. For those people who aren't sure what the census is, it's a survey that takes place every 10 years. Everybody in England and Wales takes part, and it's run by the ONS, who is my employer, the Office for National Statistics. That means that we are unbiased and independent of government. We report to Parliament and not any political party. And the census overall gives us a really accurate snapshot of society in the most detail that we will likely ever get, realistically speaking. The next census, as has been mentioned, is coming up really soon. It's on Sunday the 21st of March 2021. It's the first time we've ever run a digital first census as well. That means that we're encouraging as many people as possible to complete it online. Obviously, you can still get paper forms if you require it, and people that we've identified as being unlikely to complete it digitally will have just been sent the paper forms like they have done in the past anyway. As I mentioned, it's our job to focus on engaging with everybody, but especially communities who might be excluded. So we've worked quite extensively with charities and third parties, as well as the City Council, to try to make sure that we're not going to miss any groups out. And we've identified key areas within the city, and especially in my job within South Leeds, to make sure that we are going to include as many people as possible, with a campaign that's been running now since the late part of September. Also going to talk very briefly about signposting people towards support. So predominantly speaking, the census website, census.gov.uk, is where all of the support can be accessed, and as well as a telephone helpline that goes along with that. And on there, you can find a whole suite of resources such as language support, you can get translation services. There's a suite of different facilities available for people, for example, who have various different disabilities. There's videos from that are in BSL from the Deaf Association, and a bunch of other stuff as well that can really basically help people to complete the census. And it's sort of like point them in the right direction if they're unsure as to what it's for, and the purpose behind why they should bother doing it. I mentioned that we do work with a variety of different organisations. Third parties are probably the biggest ones, public bodies as well though. Schools, we've got a range of different schools resources. They're completely free of charge, suitable for home learning as well as for school activities that are classroom based. So they were really popular actually. We had a lot of sign-ups when schools were closed in January, but people can still sign up to that as well. So if you have any schools within your area that you might like to signpost to some of the resources, you can just go type into Google Census Education and you'll get a whole suite of different packages there for both primary and secondary schools. We work with charities, community leaders, faith groups, and within communities themselves. And if you think there's somebody within your community that you work with, an organisation or an individual, please do get in touch. I'll put my email address up in a few minutes, and they can drop me an email to make sure that we've basically included them as well. The census itself is mandatory. Everybody must complete the census. Since 1920, that's been the case. You can be fined £1,000 for not taking part. However, it's extremely rare that people do get that fine because, generally speaking, even those who initially refuse, when they realise that there's a court case coming up, they tend to pretty quickly fill out the census form. So it's very, very rare for the census to actually go through and prosecute anybody, but that is an avenue that we will go down for people who do refuse to comply. In terms of barriers to the census, there's plenty of them. Language I've discussed already in terms of the support that's available, but actually fear of authorities or fear of data security, especially with an online dominant infrastructure, and people who have disabilities or lack of access to technology as well. Levels of literacy might be an issue. People who might not want to be seen or found, people who just don't know what the census is, and people not feeling included. And the big one this time around, far more prevalent than 10 years ago, is myths and misinformation. And that's one that we've been working really hard to try to combat, including a really, really broad spectrum social media campaign, which again could be another area that yourselves as councillors could help to facilitate. So a little bit of information for you in case you're unaware in terms of how we keep people's personal information safe. Obviously, there's all of the data protection legislation, GDPR, etc. But more than that, really, before we publish any of our numbers or figures, we do not include personal information on an individual level. That means that your name is stripped from your form upon submission by a computer algorithm. Nobody sees that, and it's kept safe for 100 years. That means that your data is anonymized. Further, your information is never revealed as an individual household. It's only ever released as a group. And by that, we mean on an LSOA and an MSOA level. So in other words, kind of similar to what a postcode district would be. So you can see how many people speak certain languages in a certain part of Leeds, for example, but you can't identify any individuals for any of the categories that we use for the census questions. I mentioned already that we are independent of government. That means that whilst we technically are a government department, i.e. we have a .gov email address, and we obviously get public funding, we're independent of any political party. We are absolutely adamant that we are very careful with regard to making sure that we don't have any political bias, and they're very strict on that. That includes even such things as text messages between staff get monitored, so the whole works. You can't even tell jokes about political parties. It's a straight no-no. So there's no political bias involved with the census operation itself. Nobody, including the government, the Home Office, the police, absolutely nobody can access individual level data to get hold of anyone's personal information. Even if they wanted to, it wouldn't be possible because obviously the anonymization process that happens straight away, that's automated. But if that weren't the case, they still wouldn't be able to because of the legal parameters that are set. After 100 years, your name is then reattached. The general idea being that at a minimum of 116 years old, you probably don't mind how your data is going to be used, but it's released at that point because people like to use it for family history searches and genealogy and so on and so forth. I mentioned that data is released on a non-individual level in terms of batches and groups on mainly an LSOA level, but obviously can be a larger data set as well. So people cannot be identified individually. And obviously the whole lot is subject to and processed to all of the various different laws, but especially GDPR legislation as well. In terms of what people will receive, hopefully by now, all of you will have received a postcard to tell you that the census is coming. That should have arrived 2, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point. And hopefully everybody has now had their initial contact packs, which includes a letter with a 16-digit code on the front. We are still sending those out, so please don't worry if you haven't got it just yet. They will go out all the way through up till Friday. The latest one should arrive ideally Thursday, but there's a chance with Royal Mail being a touch behind that they might not arrive till Friday. If you reach Friday or any of your constituents reach Friday and they haven't had their contact pack with their digital code on the front, then all they need to do is go to the census website and they can request a code and we can text you that code instead. It's not a big deal at all. Alongside that initial letter with the 16-digit code that allows you to log on and complete your census form will be a small postcard detailing some of the bits and bats that people might want to know about the census. So for example, what it is, why they have to take part, is it compulsory, that sort of stuff. Very basic, general FAQ level questions, the kind of stuff that we get emailed on a day-to-day basis. If people forget to complete their census, then they will be sent a census reminder card in the post. They might also get a census officer knock on their door in full PPE, of course, in a COVID secure manner. And that's just there to offer them any support. And this is often where people admit to not having language prerequisites to be able to complete the form, especially with things like literacy. So help and support can be signposted that way. But this is also the first point of call where we can identify when people potentially might be refusing to do the census. So I'm going to finish with councillor support in terms of what I'm sort of in the meeting for, apart from obviously to address that the census is on its way and is really soon. First things first, the census only works if people want to get involved. So please do feel free to pass on any useful contact information that you might have. I've done these meetings across the city now, and generally speaking, I get 2 or 3 emails at the end of it. people say, you know, we'd like to put posters up, or would like to have some postcards to put through some constituent stores. That's fine. If that's the sort of thing that you're after, no problem. I can order those for you. It takes about 3 to 4 days to arrive, and I can get the hard copy resource ordered. There's also a whole suite of downloadable resources that are available digitally on our website, census.gov.uk. Second thing is, please do speak to people in your community about what you've learned today. They might come to you and ask you questions, so please do encourage them to take part. Social media is, again, a really good place for this, especially the question and answer sessions. I myself have done quite a bit of work on social media, both locally and nationally, to try to basically get the word out and try to overcome any misconceptions and things like that. And please do talk to any fears. Don't shy away if someone comes to you with a misconception or says, I'm scared of X. Please don't shy away from being able to be direct with them. We want people to have as much information as possible so that they can make the informed decision to take part in the census. Please do feel free to follow the Census social media account, which is at Census 2021 on pretty much all of the major platforms. And additionally, you can follow me, Census S Leeds, on Twitter. That's only on Twitter though. And we do a lot of work locally with our social media accounts as well. Another thing which we're happy to offer is virtual completion events. I mentioned that I've done several for asylum seekers and refugees. I've got some for the Gypsy Traveller community. I've done some for the Sikh community, Indian community, Muslim community, and Chinese communities. But I'm happy to do those for absolutely anybody that would like assistance to complete their forms online, or even if you work with a group that potentially is a little unsure and would like somebody official to come and have a chat with them. I'm happy to do that as well. And obviously, the final thing is make sure that you yourselves do complete your census form on or before the 21st of March 2021. So that's this coming Sunday. Thank you all for your time. My email address obviously is in the invitation for this event, so feel free to drop me a message after this session with any questions you've got, or to request any resources, etc. If anyone's got any questions, I'll happily take them.
Thank you, Scott, for that. I think we have one councillor wants to ask a question. It's Councillor Renshaw.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Scott, how these people who haven't got access to the website,
yes,
even when you get the long number, it tells you to go onto the website.
Yeah, so you've got two choices. You can go to the website, but obviously that won't be very useful for people who don't have technology and that sort of thing. But you can phone the census helpline instead. It's a free phone number, and then you can get all the support available over the phone that you can get on the website.
I think just the way it's set out is a little bit. I know a few people who have come up to me because they've been a little bit daunted by not being able to access the website and what are they supposed to do, and then it's only afterwards that they say that they'll ring the free phone number. But I think it's all geared towards the technology side, whereas at one time you got the census and it was quite open and plain and easy to follow. So I think a little bit more thought around that probably.
So just to say, there has been quite extensive development with regard to the census website itself. So I do take your point that it's not easy for everybody. Absolutely correct. We anticipate that around 85 to 86% of the population will complete it digitally. So the census has been geared with that in mind. And the majority of the remaining 15% has been sent the paper form like they've done traditionally. Obviously, we're not going to get everybody with that, though. That's based on a computer algorithm, and it's not perfect. We admit that. So ultimately, what we're saying is people should be willing to come forward if they want a paper copy. They don't need to have any reason other than they just want a paper copy. If that's what they're more comfortable doing, that's totally fine. They can call the free phone number, and I appreciate that the first thing on there is direct them towards digital assistance. That's just because the digital assistance is quite comprehensive, and the majority of people, as I said, 85-ish%, probably are quite comfortable doing that, especially since lockdown. More and more people have got those technological skills that they previously maybe didn't have. And so that's why we go down the internet-based approach as opposed to signposting them to the call centre. The other thing that I didn't mention is that, and this does vary depending on which part of the city you are in, we also have census support centres, which are run by the Good Things Foundation, which are a charitable organisation, and they effectively are running things. For example, some of the Leeds hubs, so the Central Library is one, Armley Hub is one, and Dewsbury Road Hub, and so on. Also are going to be opening to various capacities. Now, obviously, with COVID, the majority of them are telephone only, but some people like to hear a local voice as opposed to somebody in a call centre in London. And the other places, there's a couple in, I think there's one in Wortley, there's another couple in South Leeds as well. I can't recall off the top of my head. But they're going to be open for appointment-based services. So you could make an appointment and go in a COVID safe manner and basically go and complete your census that way if you didn't have digital technology at home. For the obvious reason, not everyone does, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. I do appreciate the fact that you can fill in your family's census as well, as long as you put it down on there. So that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Are there any more questions?
I've just got a brief one. There's no issue with completing the census early, is there? You don't have to wait till Sunday to do it.
No. Oh no, please do. I completed mine straight away. I got it through. 6 minutes later, it was done. That easy.
That's fine. Any more questions for Scott? Are we okay with that? I think that's it, Scott. Can I thank you again for coming? Your input. I hope it goes well on Sunday and we get 100% turnout.
Yeah, that's the aim. We're up to 33 so far, so we're doing well.
Well, that's good. That's good. Thank you.
All. Right. Take care.
We'll move on, everybody, to the next item agenda, which is looking at the transport strategy. And I believe I can see Finn. Are you on the call? And Paul Foster. Are you?
Good afternoon, Councillor Dawson.
Good afternoon, Finn. Paul, I think you've just been on the previous call earlier on, weren't you?
I have, yeah. Had a busy afternoon of Zoom calls.
Yeah. Are you leading on this, Paul?
I am, yeah. So I'll just do
hand over to you.
Okay. So I'm Paul Foster. I'm Transport Strategy Manager at the council. And Finn and myself have been the last year pulling together this Connecting Leeds Transport Strategy, which went to December's Executive Board as a draft, was approved there to go out for consultation. So that's ongoing at the moment, and that's why we've come here to talk to you, answer your questions about the strategy, hopefully gauge the level of support you have for the things that we've included in this strategy, and talk about how people can get involved and encourage everyone to add their views, because the more people we have commenting on this, the more that we can refine the strategy and ensure that it is a strategy that is agreeable and right for everyone in Leeds. Okay, so the vision for the transport strategy is for Leeds to be a city where you don't need a car, and that's about everyone having an affordable, accessible, low carbon choice in how they make every journey that they do. So this is very much about making sure that we've got a system that allows people to travel around the city for all the journeys you do. If you think about what you might do on a weekly basis, maybe in more normal times than we've got now. So, you know, the leisure trips you do, the commuting trips you do, the business trips you do, visiting friends, etc. All those journeys, we need to look at how we can get alternatives for people who don't necessarily have access to the car, either through disability, through the challenges of the financial costs of that, or maybe the choice not to. And we want a transport system that ensures that it's equal for everyone. Okay, so moving on, this is very much built on three objectives that we've got. One is tackling climate change, and transport emissions in the city make up a third of the carbon emissions in the city. So we've clearly got to do a lot with transport and reducing the number of internal combustion engines there are circulating in the city to get us towards that net zero target of 2030. In terms of delivering inclusive growth, an efficient transport system helps the economy, and as well as helping individuals and businesses save time on their journeys and their costs, it's about the individual's travel costs as well. That's really important. So we have to look at reducing the cost of travel for everyone as well by having more efficient systems, using the road space that we have available better for us. And then health and well-being. Walking and cycling are hugely beneficial to both our physical and mental health. And we need to build that into our daily lives more than we do, and we want a transport strategy that helps us do that. But we've also got to restrict or reduce the harmful impact that transport has on our health in terms of air pollution and road danger. Okay, so we've set ourselves some ambitious targets in terms of a shift of the way we travel, from reducing car use, increasing bus, rail, cycling and walking, and also included in that sort of reducing the distances we have to travel. So through planning, through the way we use services and where we go for the things that we need in our daily lives, maybe reducing the distance we have to travel as well as a totality. So that will help towards that reduction. The climate emergency target that I've stated, and then a vision zero around road safety, where we want 0 people to be killed or seriously injured in Leeds roads by 2040. Okay, Finn, next slide. So the scale of the challenge is something that we've been grappling with, and to reach that 2030 target is going to be really, really challenging. If we do the things that we're doing at the moment, continue as we are, we probably only get about 17% reduction in CO2 emissions. If we do the things that we've set out in this strategy, in terms of commitment, we get the funding and the policy support from central government to deliver that, we can probably get to about 43% reduction. So we've still got a big gap. And so what we've set out in the strategy is a number of other options that we might want to consider. And through this consultation, we want to hear your views about things like workplace parking levy, about a low carbon zone, for instance, charging the most polluting and carbon, if you like, carbon emitting vehicles. How we might fund public transport differently. Can we put more support into public transport in terms of public funding? And then how do we look at more shared ownership models, and how does the council influence that? Okay, the strategy sets out 6 big moves, as we've called them, or sort of themes that we're looking at, and they are really highlighted in the executive summary. There's a bit that we shared as part of the papers, and I hope members have had a look at that in terms of more detail in there, in terms of what each of these measures would entail, and what we could do in there. But briefly, decarbonising transport is about 1, reducing the amount we travel and distances we travel. 2, about shifting the way we travel to more lower carbon forms of transport, be that walking, cycling or public transport. And then thirdly, looking to decarbonise in the remaining fleet. So we're well aware that there are people who need to use vehicles. There's goods, there's deliveries, there's disabled users, there's essential use that people have in the way that they travel around. But what we really want to do is ensure that they can electrify their vehicle. You know, we can have electric vehicles in those that reduce emissions at the point of use. In terms of creating healthier streets, space and communities, I hope this really chimes with members at a local level. This is about dealing with the effects that we have within the streets, around our homes, around our neighbourhoods, around our district centres, and making them more attractive places people want to dwell, and that aren't dominated by the motor vehicle. There's a chapter on transforming the city centre. Clearly, as the economic centre of West Yorkshire and the city region, there's an important need to link to the city centre for those opportunities in terms of leisure, employment, education, health care, etc., that communities need to access, as well as in their local area. Enhancing public transport. I think obviously today the government announced its bus strategy, and we'll all be digesting that over the coming days and weeks to see where that may help. But we're also working closely with the Combined Authority around their bus strategy and developing an enhanced partnership with the bus operators to deliver us a better bus service in the city. And I think every community committee that I've been to, every public meeting that I've ever been to, the need to improve public transport has been massively highlighted. And I think there are a number of ways we can do that. We have to look at how we can invest in, as the Highway Authority, in the infrastructure that reduces delays and the cost of running vehicles because of running public transport because of that. But then how does that then lever in investment from the bus operators in terms of new vehicles, in terms of running on new routes, increasing the frequency, running in the evenings and weekends, and then in terms of the Combined Authority and how they can govern that and distribute the public funding that goes into public transport to get us the systems that we all want, and to be able to people to be able to travel where they need to go. New mobility solutions is a bit buzzwords, isn't it? But what that really is thinking about are two things. One, how we utilize technology and when we pay for transport. So looking at integrated ticketing systems, a bit like the Oyster card, but better, probably going further than that does, and looking at other forms of transport such as car clubs, car sharing facilities, bike share type of schemes. So bringing in all those new mobility solutions into the mix for some of those journeys where, quite frankly, a double-decker bus isn't the solution. You know, 2 people on a double-decker bus isn't the right solution for the journey. If there's only 2 people need to make that journey, we need to find other ways of doing that. And then finally, mass transit is in the strategy as a key element that we need to deliver. And again, the Combined Authority have released their vision for that and are working on details for how we deliver that through the funding that was being announced a couple of times in recent budgets, and bringing that forward. So there's a separate consultation on that members may want to comment on and work on. Okay, thank you, Vin. So just to sort of bring it back to Outer South, we looked at what you said last time when we came in the transport conversation, which we had over 10, maybe 12,000 responses from people across Leeds on the key issues. And when we've analysed the Outer South feedback, the key points, and again, these won't be news to many of you, are around those cross-district services, and that's been highlighted in a number of areas where we do public transport well or pretty well between the city centre on the radial routes in and out of the city. But anywhere where you need to go across the city, around the city, are much more poorly, far worse services there. There was some call around bus lanes and getting priority and that sort of work that we've been doing across the city. Safer cycling routes, again, if we're going to get active travel really working, if we're going to get those increases in cycling that we want to get in the city, then you need a safe environment for people to do that in. They need to feel safe doing that. Again, the bus quality, and hopefully since 2016 some of that's happened. Through our investment in infrastructure, the bus operators have come to the table as well and brought in over 200 new buses in the city, which are obviously up the standard in terms of facilities and reduction in the emissions that they release into the air. And I think I highlighted before, didn't I, about technology and ticketing. We all agree that that needs to be part of the next phase of our strategy. Okay, just to highlight some of the work that is ongoing in Outer South. There's work on a new rail station at White Rose Station. Planning permission was approved in June 2020, and that's looking to start on site later this year. We're working on proposals from what's called Transforming Cities Fund, which was more funding we got from government on the A61 and A639 corridors, looking at how we can make public and active travel better on those corridors, and similarly using other funding through the Combined Authority, looking at a Mirfield to Dewsbury to Leeds links as well in terms of both bus and cycle provision, especially in those areas. So just that's briefly from me. People can find stuff on the website that's noted down there and circulated in the packs. There's questionnaires, and quite, I think, good in terms of the way we're engaging this time is people can see what other people have said in the conversation. So it is more conversational rather than everyone just sending their views on a survey to the council. We analyse it and then tell you what everyone said. You can see individuals' views on there, and quite interesting then to see the diverse range of comments that we're getting from people. We're looking to reach as many people as possible with this, as I said at the start. So we're going to try and put up some posts and make sure we do engage with people who are not seeing it through the online advertising, etc., that we've got going at the moment. And it's live till the 11th of April. We've also been doing, as part of this, a series of webinars with experts from our expert panel who we've had advising us on the strategy over time, plus people like the bus operators and representatives from the Combined Authority and others to give us a sort of a flavour on each of the big moves. So they're available to watch on YouTube back if you feel inclined to get a bit more information, and people are asking questions. And we're doing the final webinar next week, summing up what that means for Leeds, what we've learned from the consultation today. And so that'll be another interesting one. We've got the Civic Trust and Councillor Hayden as the new exec member for our area as well. So when members are asking questions, I'd really like to hear how much you agree with the vision and the objectives that we set out in the strategy. Are there things that we've missed? And then what are your priorities? What are the things that we need to do when we're developing our action plans and schemes that will support delivery of the strategy aims in Outer South, and how do we carry on and deliver some more of those? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that. Right, open to the floor for any questions or comments. I can see a couple of hands. Councillor Finnegan, I think you were first with your hand.
Thanks, Chair. Some of us remember bus deregulation in 1986. Clearly, the bus services haven't worked since that particular point. What faith should we have that the private sector bus companies are going to stand up to the plate, because they haven't done in the subsequent, whatever it is, 34 years at this point, 35 years at this stage, and in the case that unless you have a re-regulated bus service, you're not going to be able to up the number of people using public transport. And the second is an issue about electric vehicles, really. Taking it that we all switch to electric vehicles by 2030, is there enough capacity within the electricity generating process to be able to support, what was it, I know, 50 million electric vehicles at this particular stage? And if that's not the case, what are we going to do about that? Thanks, Neil.
Thank you. I'll ask for a few more questions before asking Paul to respond. Councillor Renshaw.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask if there's anything in place for the disabled. Well, obviously, the travelling is quite complex for, so I didn't hear anything about the disabilities and the enabled people who will require to use that sort of transport unless they continue to use the buses like we've already got. And have the council got any plans to incorporate our own bus service alongside the private sector at the moment? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Karen. Can I ask Councillor Mulhern next?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Paul and Finn for the presentation, and not surprisingly, very supportive of the strategy. From a local perspective, just wanted to make comments in terms of the need for a public transport hub, really, for our area, and to have connectivity into the villages. So our ward falls between the two towns, and you've already identified that clearly connections on the main arterial routes to the city centre are relatively okay, and that the problems we have are the connectivity across the outlying areas. So from the villages in Ardsley and Robin Hood, even getting, for instance, in and out of Rothwell to do your shopping is quite challenging. So there's a question there. We've got some work at the moment on demand responsive transport. I wonder if you wanted to mention that. And I I think the other thing is in terms of active travel as well, how we connect again in local areas, in outlying areas, to local towns as well as city centres, and to local leisure opportunities as well. So, for instance, getting from East Ardsley to either the bike park up in Middleton or across to White Rose Centre. So thinking creatively about how we get those cycle links in for outlying areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Before asking you to respond to anything, Paul, I'll just take Councillor Galton and have all the questions raised. So over to you, Stuart. Yeah.
Chair, well, following on from Councillor Herring's comments, really, it's about when these schemes are developed through transforming cities. Paul's heard this from me before, by the way. There's a lot of concentration on the transport corridor itself, and when they do include terminology such as transport hubs, it doesn't generally include the communities that are mid-route on that corridor going into the city centre. So yeah, we would like to see a little bit more development of how people are enabled to access the public transport investment which is in the area, and getting those active travel links in place. But actually, I don't think that's achieved by having a high level internet-based interface with general populations. People, I know you've said, oh yes, people can have conversations online, but they tend to be geeks and nerds that want to talk about what they want to talk about. And actually, sometimes we need to enable people within communities to have a conversation which they might not feel confident about having. So I'm just wondering how much of your team actually are meant to be community-facing engagement officers, so that you can stimulate planning for real events, for instance, in places like Lofthouse and Rothwell and Driglington or whatever, so for people to actually say, you know, get on the map and go, oh, that's a problem, and oh, if only we could, you know, do something here at this corner, we could sort it out, that aren't really going to access the Connecting Leeds Your Space facility. I think that's what it's called, is it? I can't remember. Anyway, that'll do me. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. Paul, do you want to respond to the points made so far?
I do. I think I want to agree with Councillor Finnegan's point, I think, around bus deregulation. Interesting that the document that's come out today from government shows quite categorically, it's got some very interesting graphs in there, almost admitting that it hasn't worked and we do need to try a different option. So I think the point I made and the example I gave about working with the bus operators and the investment they've made in vehicles in the city does show that we can achieve results through those partnerships, a voluntary partnership that we've had with them so far. We're looking to formalise that and legal, you know, take that further. But through the devolved powers of the mayor, then franchising is an option that could be taken forward, isn't it? It's not the current plan for West Yorkshire, but that power is there. But what I would say on that point is that whoever controls them and runs the buses, there's still a fundamental of economics of how you get services to run, work, be viable, and how you deliver them. So whatever regulation you work under, there's still a challenge of ensuring that you can get the services that people want and deliver them with the fair income that they would generate. So there's always that challenge, whoever runs them. And you're also, Councillor Finnegan, very right about the electric vehicles and the grid capacity if we all converted in that time. And I think that's why within the strategy we're really trying to make the case that we do need to move to less individual car ownership. We need to look at share models. We need to change the mode instead of just electrifying, because as well, in an urban environment, there's not enough space for everyone to have a vehicle, everyone to drive it wherever they want. It doesn't work. We've seen that from the congestion that we have across the city. you've got to have shared public transport solutions to make the city work effectively. Councillor Renshaw, I think maybe my presentation hasn't covered all the elements of disabled use, and I think if you read the strategy in more detail, we have been very conscious to include those elements. I think it's very much focused on when we look at the detail, when we actually building schemes. I'll give an example of how we work with the access and usability group. When we were doing the scheme in the hedgerow, they were very concerned about what the materials would look like, and we've got our contractor to actually build a sample piece of road in their depot, and they came down, and the blind partially sighted people were checking to make sure the contrast of the materials was right, the curb height was enough to notice with a cane but not too much to trip, etc. So there was a lot of work done on the detail and how we implement that. We also have officers, for example, officers working on delivering drop curbs, you know, the little things that make a huge difference to disabled users across the city. So I do hope that when we're, you know, it's very much built into the processes and the way we work, and ensuring that equality is delivered. And the other point you made, wasn't it, about the council's services, and actually just going through stages of developing a door-to-door service where people can ring up and get a minibus that will take them to their health appointments or other essential needs. So yeah, we are working to deliver those sorts of services for people. Councillor Herring, thanks for the support, of course. You're very right that we have got to work on, and I think addresses Councillor Galton's point as well, around making sure that we do have the holistic solutions to the outer areas, and this has come up at other outer areas as well, about how the more dispersed communities can link into those key public transport routes, and making sure that they go via the district centres to the places people want to travel. And so the example of demand responsive transport, I think, is one that's really going to come to the fore and start to solve a lot of these issues for our areas. And we've got to find ways to deliver more of those, and find ways to fund them. Essentially, it's like a cross between it's basically Uber with minibuses, but run as a public transport service, rather than a sort of private hire service, and so therefore it picks people where they need to go, shares those journeys. There's a clever algorithm behind it that works out how many people are on the route and picks a couple of them up and takes them. So you know, for instance, you could get a few people, it would go into the centre of Rothwell, pick a few people up there, take them to maybe the main high frequency stop on the route into Leeds, and then pick up some people from there and take them back to their residential house. So you know, very efficient system and use of vehicles, and one we've really got to utilise the advances in digital technology to start to deliver. We are going to trial one of those with the combined authority, trial one of those in East Leeds later this year, and I'm really hoping that that's successful and a model we can roll out across many communities and areas in the city. I think that was, yeah, agree on the cycle links. I think the challenge with cycle links is the expense required and the if you like, we're so far behind in terms of the network. We've got aspirations for a network probably of 800 kilometres. We've probably got less than 200, and not all those are up to the standard we would like them to be. So it does need a huge level of investment to get that network up and working and connect all the areas of the city. And then I think I've covered everything apart from Councillor Galton's point on engagement officers. I think our traffic engineering section, you know, have an officer assigned to each area. They do listen to members' feedback on specific schemes, on smaller scale interventions, you know, parking in district centres, road safety issues that have concerns for you, and I think that's all part of developing up and delivering that those better residential communities and areas that we all want. And again, I think we've put a focus in the strategy to say, and an ask in the strategy to say that those small things, those small schemes, do need greater funding, do need greater prominence in delivering the solutions. It doesn't have to all be, if you like, bigger multi-million-pound schemes that a ribbon can be cut on. You know, we do need some of the smaller scale interventions as well to deliver for people locally.
Thank you, Paul.
I hope that covered everything, Chair.
I think it did. I don't see any more hands raised. Any more questions? I was just going to confirm, Paul, in terms of the consultation, if we wish to comment about the hubs and locations of interchanges, this is our opportunity to do that. That, you know, if you think a village or a community or an employment park should be a major hub, then that is the chance to feed in to the consultation to do that.
Absolutely. So, you know, there's a little bit of a multitude of consultations ongoing at the moment. There's definitely, you know, there's Leeds City Council, this Connecting Leeds strategy, but there's also the combined authorities work as well. And I think it's probably worth putting your representation into both places, make sure it gets picked up, make that point strongly that where you see the priorities are necessary.
And with it finishing on April the 11th, we've got the rest of the lockdown to actually do that. You know?
After that, we won't be interested in. Thank you.
Right. Can I thank Paul for attending and Finn as well? We'll move on to the next item, agenda item 11. I think it's over to Kimberly for the finance update.
Thank you, Chair. That's right. That would be me with my finance update. So papers have been circulated and I will take them as read, but I'm just going to go through the main points of the finance report. So the finance report starts on page 59, and this report details the revenue, capital and youth activity fund for 2020-21 financial year. I'll take straight to paragraphs 17 and 19, which provide a summary of revenue allocation to date. And table 1, just underneath on page 62, shows a total of 124,450 allocated to projects throughout this financial year, which leaves a balance of £39,325.85. I asked members, there are 3 new projects to consider from paragraph 23, and then I've also sent around late items that you should all have in front of you, if that's okay. And I asked members to consider the projects and indicate whether you support them or not. So we'll start with the first one, if that's okay, Chair, and that's for Morley Elderly Action, and that's for the Outer South Gardening Scheme. It's a total project cost of £35,000, and the gardening scheme are asking from wellbeing funds from next year's allocation, so 2021 to 22, of £29,880, and this covers all 4 wards in the Outer South.
Right, thank you, Kimberly. Can we indicate that we support the gardening maintenance scheme to continue for another year? I'm seeing a lot of nods and a few hands raised. So.
Support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's continue. Thank you, Karen. I think, Kimberly, we can take that as agreed.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So moving on to your next one, it's Morley Arts Festival project, and it's the organisation is Morley Arts Festival. Total project.
I think Karen's wanting to speak, Kim.
Yeah, I just want to ask on the Outer South Garden maintenance service that's put £7,500 from each ward. Can I ask if we can have a breakdown of how many gardens in each ward have been served this year by the gardening scheme, and then ensure that we get the same number of gardens, not as what we've already had, but the same number of gardens in each ward, considering that we're all
I'm sure we
contributing
can
the
get
same
the
amount?
stats on the location of
Happy to
where we've
comment on that,
assisted
Chair.
people.
Unfortunately, there's an overlap because the way it works with the financial year, obviously the monitoring form with all the details will come in April. So I will circulate that and it will be on your next committee report. So yeah, we'll pick that up. And then obviously the new year starts in April as well. So we have to get it through before that if you want it to go ahead.
Thank you. Robert, do you want to speak on the garden maintenance scheme?
Yeah, well, very, very briefly, Chair. On last year's figures, Morley North got the lowest number of gardens paid for at this particular point, but we believe that it's a scheme that is as fair and equitable as you can make it. And certainly Morley North colleagues, I'm sure, will continue to support it regardless of whether we're bottom of the list as we were last year. And if I remember rightly, I think Arnsley was either at the top or second at this particular point. Perhaps we ought to get more gardens in Morley North. As far as we're concerned, it's a good scheme. The breakdowns historically are passed out to ward members for them to confirm these details. I'm sure Morley Elderly Action are more than happy to provide those details.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll get the information. Judith, is it on the same issue?
No, it isn't. Mine's the next one. Shall I set that down? No, it's not.
It's not on the same issue.
Arts Festival, me.
I think we're still on gardens at this point, Judith.
I think Councillor Chapman's got her hand up, Chair.
All right, then, I can't see on my list, Councillor Chapman, but yes, speak if you wish to speak.
I'd just like to know that the Morley Elderly Action and the Green Guardians bids are working together. We've had them come through the HAP, and that was a big increase for next year as well. And Councillor Finnegan, you may have been lowest on the Morley Elderly Action, but I think you got the most out of the Green Guardians in the last round. So I think we need an equitable.
About time, Councillor Chapman. About time, in my view.
Maybe so, but I do think we need an equitable way, and we did agree a phased rollout of the Green Guardians at the HAP to make sure that all that the money was spent equitably.
Yeah, we did talk about it.
Yeah, so that's all I'm trying to say is I think we need to make sure the two projects that are both being funded at a cost of I think close on £50,000 now across the two committees are working together, and we're getting the best value for money, and we're getting an equitable value for money across the patches.
Yeah. Well, I think at a future meeting we'll have the information that Kimberly's talked about.
Yeah,
I do recall discussing that last year, like Councillor Chapman said, and it was agreed
Yeah,
to
I
make
can
it
remember that.
fair across all the wards,
which
is what my point was initially. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
So just to reiterate, everyone, I will bring the figures to the next meeting. Also, Councillor Chapman, just to address what you said, Carol's definitely aware of it. I would have to double check how closely they are working. I can update you after this meeting, after I've spoken to her. Am I all right to move on to the next project?
Yeah.
So the next,
Is that the Arts Festival?
That's Morley Arts Festival.
Councillor Hutchinson got into the waiting room.
I believe it has, yeah.
Can Morley members request that this is deferred for more information? We'd like a little bit more clarity rather than us discuss it at this particular point. We need some more information to confirm things, Chair, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'm happy to defer it. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll move on to the third project, if that's okay then. Morley Town Centre Management Board. The total project cost is £38,000, and the proposed amount from Wellbeing from 2021-22 Wellbeing Fund is £15,000, and that's for Morley North and Morley South.
Move this item, Chair. I think we all accept that the town centre will need whatever help and support it can get on its recovery after the pandemic. The Town Centre Management Board does do a lot of brilliant work, I would say that, because I'm chair of it. But I think it is important that we continue to provide that financial help and support that the Town Centre Management Board needs to help businesses climb out of their post-COVID situation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Is it agreed?
Yes.
Members in support of that?
Yeah.
Yes,
I can
Chair.
see Councillor Kidger nodding and Councillor Elliott.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I am, so.
Yeah.
I can't.
Thank you.
And then we wish to speak against it? No.
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 Thank you, Chair. So
Let's
if we
move
move
on
on to
then.
the next project, these are your two late items. The first one is for 2 defibrillators in Morley. I will confirm the locations after the meeting, but they're both in Morley South. The total project cost is for £3,000 and the amount proposed is from capital funds from Morley South for 1,500, and the other 1,500 have been fundraised by the local community. So if I can ask whether you support that one or not?
I'm happy to move and support that one, yes.
Yes.
Happy to support.
Lovely. Thank you. So move on to your second late item, which is the Little Free Library on Middleton Road. Again, it's in Morley South.
Yeah.
The total project cost is for £950. Again, your local communities fundraise £500 and are just looking for £400 to match that. And we're proposing that comes from capital funds again from Morley South.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally support that. Just a little bit worried about where it would be, but I understand Louise Bentley, who knows about them, is agreed to take on the guardianship. So yeah, good luck to you. You know, happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'll confirm the exact location once we've agreed it.
Right, thank you, Kimberly. So I think that's agreed. No voices against.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll move on down the rest of the finance report and I'll take you to page 63, which is table 2. And this shows a total spend of wellbeing COVID funds of £30,915, which have been allocated to projects so far. And it leaves a remaining balance of £9,084.90. I've also included a breakdown on the next page, page 64, of the National COVID Funds in Table 3. So far, we've got a total spend of £19,916.52 that we've allocated towards projects so far. And this leaves a remaining balance of £20,083.48. So moving on, if I could take you to paragraph 26. Oh, sorry, do you have a question, Councillor Welton?
Yeah, sorry, I raised my hand because I'm finding it very hard to keep track with your reporting, Kim. So, you know, when you're mentioning particular tables, it would be really useful if you could identify which page they're on, and so that councillors can actually get to that page and read the table as you're reporting to
That's fine, I will do. I will slow down. But
so can you go back to table 3?
I will do.
Tell me which page it's on.
So National COVID Funds in table 3 on page 64.
64.
Yeah.
Right.
This shows total spend of £19,916.52 allocated so far, and we're leaving a remaining balance of £20,083.48.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody's got a radio or something in the background. There's quite a lot of background noise.
Hopefully it's not me, but it might be.
Yeah. Okay, you happy for me to carry on?
Yeah.
Okay, so paragraph 26. Sorry, I just need to find my place here. Shows approves 2 projects that have been approved outside the community committee meeting by a DDN, and just say these projects were also included in your table 1. So paragraph 29, which is on page 70.
Yeah.
It features 8 projects that have taken place that were funded by the Outer South Community Committee. Now, 5 of those were funded out of COVID funds. If anybody wants to comment on any of them in particular, let me know. Otherwise, I will just move on. Okay, so table 4, which is on page 70. Is the youth
just a minute, Kim. I think I had 1 or 2 people who wanted to speak. I think Councillor Gettins has raised his hand. Bob, did you want to go back to page 70?
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes.
Chair, can I just comment on the rail junk food project that appears on table 3? I don't know whether anybody saw the BBC programme showing Adam Smith, who is the founder of the rail junk food, who was a Morley lad, a Bruncliffe school lad, who decided that he wanted to redirect food that was going to landfill and put it to feed the needy or to feed anybody, but to stop it going to landfill. So that's why these two projects for Morley North and South, we arranged with, using COVID money, we arranged for 9 Morley schools to receive 5 large boxes of food every week for 10 weeks. And it was interesting to know that a week after, the BBC reported that the best way of getting food to the needy was through schools, because teachers could identify the families that were needy. And it's interesting that in 2019, this rail junk food project dealt with 170 tons of food were all destined for landfill. And last year, they distributed 1,500 tons of food, which is equivalent to 3.6 million meals, all this food have gone on to landfill. And they're supporting charities like St George's Crypt and other charities and homeless organisation. And it's well, I visited the warehouse in Sturton, and it's absolutely disgusting to see the mountains of food that were destined for landfill. So it's been a really worthwhile project. It's caused a lot of interest in Morley, in the schools. We're very keen to support it, but also in the village of Gildersham, the village councillors and other people we know in the village have offered to buy boxes of food at £10. And this morning I ordered 25 boxes for 25 different families in Gildersham who are wanting to pay £10 to support the scheme. So it's a brilliant scheme, and I'm really proud that an ex-pupil of mine had the idea and is running this project in Sturton.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I think it's got the support of the entire committee, Bob, as the project.
Good.
Yeah, Councillor Finnegan, did you want to speak on this before we move on? Got your hand up, Robert.
I think his hand might have just been remained up, was it?
Well, yeah, it's disappeared off my screen as well, so I can't see it.
Not a bad thing.
There's a pleasure of my appearance again, Neil.
Well, you've got your hand up, Robert. Is it from before, or is it a new hand? I think, Wynne, do you want to say something?
Yes, if I could.
Yeah,
I have been involved in this junk food project, and it has gone down very, very well. We have delivered to a few Morley South schools, and it has been absolutely really received well. You know, because obviously the schools know the children who struggle, and we've left it to the school to determine where it's to go. And we've done so much in Morley, as we all have done, but especially Morley North and South. We've supported so many food banks and so many projects like this. So it's just a really nice feel-good project. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Wynne. Right, can I hand back to Kimberly to take up a finance report?
Thank you, Chair. So if I could take you to table 4, which is on page 77, and this outlines a total of £35,868.40 that's been allocated to YAF, so Youth Activity Fund projects during this financial year. And we've got a balance remaining of £22,815.04. If I can then just move you down the page slightly to paragraph 32. And so far this year, the Community Committee have approved one small grant, which is shown there in table 5. So moving on to the next page, page 78, you've got your table 6, which shows that this year so far, the Outer South Community Committee have approved 2 community skips. And then moving down the page on table 7 is your capital balance of £58,847.94, which is available to spend still on new schemes. Lastly, for me, on page 79, paragraph 35 is the community infrastructure levy allocations, and there is a balance left of £123,916.17. That's it from me, unless there's any more questions on the finance report.
I don't think there are any more questions.
I think Councillor Galton has his hand up, Chair.
Oh, yes, he does. Sorry, Stuart. Yes, Councillor Galton.
I'll take it down now, just so you don't mix it up again. Yes, on the issue of community infrastructure levy, we had a principle laid previously whereby if a development happens in a ward and the money comes down to the community committee to distribute as the lowest form of, sorry, not lowest form, most local form of decision making, which is accountable within the council structure, that it is allocated to the ward within which the development happened. Now, we've recently had an issue whereby if land is sold by the council, traditionally 20% of that money would come back to the local ward members. And this would be done generally through a direct relationship between those ward members and the council's finance unit. Now, under a recent land sale that happened, I've been informed that there is a new, what's the word, a new ratio of distribution for such monies, and that local members would have direct access to only 15%, and that the community committee would have access to the remaining 5%. And when I asked whether that remaining 5% would be associated with the ward it came from, as is the case with community infrastructure levy, I was informed no, it gets shared out. Now, I don't seem to think that is quite right and doesn't quite fit with the spirit of subsidiarity, which is part of the community committee structure and its attitude towards distribution of funds. And I don't think it's been formally constituted on any kind of documentation. So I just thought I'd raise it here so that other members can actually have an opinion on this, so that if there isn't anything formally in writing, we can certainly make up our own, because precedent sets the law, doesn't it? So over to you, members.
Stuart, on that point, I will raise it. We've got a chairs forum next week, so I will raise it there with the lead exec member and the communities officer, the issue that you've raised, and then feedback. Yeah.
Are the others agreeing in principle that we should look after, we should have our own money for assets which are sold in our area per ward?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll feed back the response from the chairs forum. Yes. Right. I think we can move on. I think on the finance report, the final issue really is the agreement to the recommendations in paragraph 44. Most of it is noted in the report, but again, we've approved various new expenditure as well. So I take it that we agree the recommendations. Yeah. Don't see anybody indicating against.
Move it, Chair.
Right, thank you, Karen. Right, I think it's on to the update report, and over to Kimberly again to introduce, but each of the champions on the theme areas may wish to speak as well. So I'll have Kimberly to introduce the update report and the champions chip in as needed.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I will take the report as read and I will just go through the highlights. As Councillor Dawson said, if any of the champions want to come in on their bit, please feel free. So the report starts on page 81 and it starts with the children and families. The children and families subgroup met on Friday, the 12th of February, a Zoom meeting, and there were representatives there from Leeds Playhouse Youth Services, targeted leaders, Breeze, ward and local ward councillors. Just to update on the online youth summit we were going to have in paragraph 4, due to the pandemic and the strain on schools and going into a third lockdown, it was decided across the board that the online summits would not take place. However, we've moved that we'd still do an online youth survey to capture as many views as possible of the children and young people in the Outer South. So if you see in paragraph 4, there's the link to the survey there with a little bit of a post that can be copied and put straight onto Facebook. So just if councillors can share that wherever possible, so we can get as many of the views as young people as we can. And just to say that the survey closes on the 30th of April. Once the survey is closed, the details will be put together and the findings will be brought to the next community committee in June, I believe, if that's the agreed date. We didn't organise a date for the next meeting because we're waiting to find out when the next committee meeting is so that we can make sure it's ahead of that meeting. Councillor Kidger, do you want to say anything on that?
Yeah. Over to you, Wayne.
You're just on mute, Councillor Kidger.
It was disappointing, thank you, Chair. It was disappointing that we didn't have the summit because we had such a fantastic one the year before, where the Lord Mayor of Leeds participated and the Morley Mayor and Mayoress as well, and it went down really, really well. So we look forward to next year. But if I can just briefly speak about, we're hoping to do some good work around children with the saving of the Lewisham Community Centre. We've got a committee and it's all hopefully going through, but the amount of children wanting to get involved, we've got dance groups, we've got cheerleaders, we've got a majorettes group, you know, we've got various groups coming along, and I'm hoping to speak with Glenn O'Malley to do more with the youth, and I'm also hoping to get Dazzle working with the youth through the community centre, and also obviously to do some outside work with Breeze as well. So it's sounding very exciting, and we just, you know, because the kids are, they've really struggled through COVID, and now I think it's time when we're up and about to reward those kids. So I'm looking forward to you know, the events going on in Morley, which obviously will go across all the boards, you know, Asley and Robin Hood, you know, for people to come along. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm sure it will be successful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Back to you,
Moving on.
Kimberly, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on down to the environment section on page 82, you'll see we've had an update on the tree planting in the Outer South, and I can confirm that they've planted 21,575 trees so far at the time of the report. Moving down the page, we've received cleaner neighbourhood reports for each of the wards, and that will continue to happen going forward. I think Councillor Heron's got her hand up there.
Yeah.
Thank
Over
you.
to you, Lisa, yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to really congratulate the Cleaner Neighbourhoods team for their outstanding work, and they've managed, despite obviously staff members having to self-isolate and been off ill themselves over the course of the last year, managed to maintain all of the service level agreements, keep our neighbourhoods looking good, and support local community volunteers as well. We've got a lot of those through different Womble groups that have been established over the last few months as people have wanted to put something back into their local community, having been spending a lot more time working from home and with young children as well, as had been said, being homeschooled as well. So I think really just want to say a big thank you and well done to them for the work that they've done.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I had my comments to that. Can I also just say on the environmental report, I'm very pleased about the rate of tree planting in the Outer South. And it's a massive goal. We've got of 5.8 million trees in 25 years. But I think somebody famous once said a journey of 1,000 miles starts at one small step. Well, one small step in the Outer South is 21,500 trees. So I'm very pleased at that and the work that's been done on the tree planting, despite some opposition in some areas. But I think it's a great step, and I just hope we can move towards the 5 million mark. That would be great. Back to you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Chair. So moving down to the community safety section on page 86, you'll see there's a safety brief on each ward as requested at the last community meeting. So Councillor Galton has his hand up, Chair.
Sorry, Chair. Before we go into community safety, on the issue of your tree planting, it's noted that tree planting schemes are happening, not just by the council, but by several organisations. One of the things that's disturbed me recently as a local councillor is that Network Rail have taken part in substantial tree felling along the route of its rail track. And they haven't got a policy of replacement when they destroy mature trees. And I just wondered if it was something which other ward members have experienced who have train lines going through their areas, because I'm concerned that as a partner of the council, their felling is actually probably creating a net loss of tree cover, because the new planting which is happening that we're doing probably won't make up for the loss of carbon capture which is being delivered through that tree felling. And I wondered if we could send that message up to the council at the centre to say, can you please have high-level conversations with Network Rail? Sorry for the roundabout introduction.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that, Stuart. And I can see Councillor Mulhern's got her hand up, so she may be able to add something at this point. Lisa,
thank you. Yeah, just to say that I certainly had conversations with Network Rail when I was exec member, where they've been doing that activity in other parts of the city. It's extremely disappointing if it's continued elsewhere. They have been asked to desist from doing that, and they are supposed to have an environmental policy. They had their own national report, the Valley Report, which talked about the need not only to consider the environmental impacts, but also the impact on local communities of the value of the ecosystem that those trees create and wildlife corridors as well. So certainly if through the chair, if you are proposing, and I'd be happy to second, that we make that recommendation from this committee to Network Rail that we don't want to see that happening. And that we want them to be.
I'm happy to do that, and I agree. And I'm very concerned, especially with the TransPennine upgrade coming along, that it may impact on the Manchester Leeds corridor that goes through Morley. So I'll happily follow that up and chase Network Rail with the support of the council and the members of this committee. Right.
Councillor Kidger has her hand up as well, Chair.
Is it on the environment?
Well, in a way, yes. I'm just going to page 85 where it's a request for what the cleansing and people have done for us, especially in Morley North and South. Can I just have it minuted to say a massive thank you? You ask them to do a job, they do it to the best of the ability. And I'm sure it goes across the wards to other awards, but with Morley South and North, we are extremely pleased with what they do. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to them. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll ask Andy to minute that. Endorse that, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
few minutes, Andy. Right, we're going back to community safety now, and over to Kimberly and probably Andy Hutchinson as well.
Thank you, Chair. So
Yeah.
just to reiterate what I just said, there's a ward breakdown of the safety brief. We've also had an update from anti-social behaviour team and the police. Councillor Hutchinson, would you like to say anything here?
To be honest, everything that's in the report, there's really much more to elaborate on that. So I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
So moving on to the employment and skills, on page 94. Oh, sorry, Councillor Galton has his hand up again, Chair.
Councillor Galton,
Chair.
yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, how soon will we know how the effect of the council's withdrawal of funding of community PCSOs will affect our area?
I guess probably as much as what I do, it's be a significant effect. How long it'll take for that effect to filter down, I guess we'll have to see within the data when it comes out over the next few months.
Councillor Renshaw, did you want to raise a point on this?
Yeah, I'd just like to say a big thank you to the police for the services that they've delivered in our ward, in Robin Hood. And on top of the reports within the papers, there's also been some arson attacks that the police have had to deal with. So we'd just like our thanks to be passed on to the police force for their...
I'm sure we can record that, yes. Thank you. Kevin. I think we interrupted you, Andy, or did we?
No, I think I'd answered Councillor Galton's question.
Thank you. Right, back to Kimberly to move on, I think.
Thank you, Chair. So going on to the employment and skills part of the report on page 94, in paragraph 84, just below is a table that shows your updated figures on the Outer South area's universal credit. And in November 2020, it was 3,366. So this has increased of 101% since March 2020. And then there's quite a few things. An update on the Leeds Apprentice Festival as well that will be held in February, and the dates for that now are the 8th to the 12th of February. Councillor Dawson, do you have anything to add to that section?
Nothing really to add, but just reinforce the impact that the pandemic has had on, number of claimants on universal credit, which has doubled in our area. It's still below the Leeds average, but it's been a really significant economic impact. But no, don't really want to add anything onto the figures that are there. Back to you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Chair. So moving on to the health and wellbeing and adult social care section of the report, and that's on page 97. The Outer South Older Persons subgroup met on Monday, the 7th of December. The group received updates from partners including the police, neighbourhood networks, Retirement Life, and we're still working on improving the commissioning process for the National Day for the Older Person for 2021, so for this year's International Day for Older People. Councillor Elliott, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, yes, we're going this month, and that from the adult health and lifestyles, I'm on the scrutiny board, and we have people reporting back there, and we do know that there's a lot of events taking part throughout Leeds on computers. We know that a lot of people don't have computers, and it doesn't make up for getting out of the house and meeting with other people. But we do know it's happening. So there's quite a lot of work going on there, and I'm pleased about that. I know that Morley Elderly Action are doing the same, and that it will be better when people can get out. and they're looking towards using Lewisham to have some extra events there for keep fit events for people, because I'm sure that everything that's happening, people will be flocking once the COVID restrictions are taken up. And that's what we're hoping. And letters have been going out to let people know where to, who to ring and who to contact if they have any problems or if they know anyone else who has a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. So if I can move on to the community centres subgroup part of the report, and that's on page 99. Paragraph 115 says that currently all community centres remain closed for the public use, and a cautious approach is being taken regarding the reopening of them. We don't have reopening dates yet, but as soon as I do get them, I will let everybody know. And Councillor Gettins, do you want to add something?
Bob, over to you.
Just on mute, Councillor Gettins.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yep. I've got bad news and good news, Chair. First, about the community centre subgroup, which I chair. We had a meeting fixed, and suddenly we all got on the committee an email saying the meeting had been cancelled. I wasn't contacted to say that that was going to happen. I don't know why it was cancelled, and I've had no further correspondence about it. It seems unbelievable that a committee is cancelled and the chair doesn't know why, or didn't even know about it being cancelled until he got the email like everybody else. So that's, and I have complained about that, so I don't want to be discussed here particularly. The good news is that some of the refurbishment of Morley Town Hall, which was long overdue, about 5 years ago, we took the view to try and do something about it. So 5 years ago and onwards, we had the seating in the balcony all redone, the leather chairs, and we had new curtains on the stage and new flooring. And recently, we've had in the small banqueting room, the carpet around the edge was all fraying, and there was safety tape connecting lino with carpet and so forth. But that's now been replaced, and it looks excellent. And we're waiting now for the delivery of some new chairs for the main hall. So that's good news, and it brings Morley Town Hall, I think, up to speed, and it becomes more lettable. Public rooms are now more lettable than they were before and are in good condition. That's it.
That's good news to finish on, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, I think back to Kimberly to finish the update report.
Councillor Chapman's got a hand up, Chair. I know you can't see you.
I can't see you, yeah.
Sorry.
And Councillor Chapman then, please.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, there unexpectedly has been a significant investment in Blackburn Hall on the outside. So they're doing the roof and all the windows and all the doors, which they just seem to find some money from somewhere to do. What they haven't done is then look at the interior, which is in a shocking state. And I am pursuing it to try to get some funds to make it look appropriate inside to go with the nice new outside. It just seems very uncoordinated in terms of how the funding is allocated and the maintenance of the building overall. Something for us to pick up on the community committee.
Well, maybe it's something we could pick up through community infrastructure levy.
Perhaps.
Taking the point earlier that was raised.
Perhaps, yeah. We'll have to wait and see what they come back with first.
Right, Councillor Hutchinson, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think as Councillor Gettins was mentioning, the works or some small-scale works that have been conducted at the Town Hall. It's worth mentioning as well that the town investment plan that Morley has been very successful in receiving the 24.3 million from government funding. I think we've got an allocation of best part of nearly £6 million for refurbishment and investment into heritage in Morley, of which the town hall is going to receive a large substantial amount of that. So there's some great plans in the pipeline for the town hall.
That's good news again. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Councillor Kidger, did you want to make a final point?
Yes, the town hall is fantastic. I mean, you never know, we might get, well, we're hoping for well, we've got all sorts planned for the town deal, which is so exciting. But my love of the town hall would be fantastic. The vision that I want to see is that it's back to how it was when it was first opened. You know,
I don't remember it, but there you go.
No, we weren't around then. We weren't around, but no, it's really good news. And I should imagine, you know, it's such a popular venue, even for weddings alone. And a simple thing like a carpet in the small banqueting room looks fantastic, and it's just so needed. So it's just lovely and refreshing to bring back a Grade 1 listed building back to what it should be. So I really do look forward to the to how we, you know, sorting the money out and spending
I think
it.
we do, right. Thank you
Thank
for
you
that.
very much.
We'll move on if that's all right. Kimberly, I think just finish the update report. If there's anything else to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just really to add, from page 99 onwards, there's an update from key services. I won't go through them all,
no,
but I just did get an update on the community hub opening, and providing everything goes as planned, step 1, 12th of April, libraries browsing will resume an unrestricted PC use, of course with social distancing being applied and face coverings. And then step 2 will be the 21st of June, where events and activities can start again. But it's not yet clear if this will still be under social distancing and mask wearing. So as soon as we get an update on that, I will let you know. And other than that, if anybody's got any questions or wants to raise anything else, I'll leave it there.
Right, thank you. I think that brings that item to a close. I think we're now down to the final item on the agenda, which is back to Andy on the dates for next year. Andy.
Sorry, actually, Chair, I have just got one more point to raise on the end of my update report. Yeah. I did really forget. I am sorry. Before we move on to dates, I'd just now like to welcome councillors to say a few words about our lovely chair, who it's his last community committee tonight. I think Councillor Mulheron has her hand up, I think, to say something.
Yeah, Lisa, by all means.
So really just taking the opportunity to thank you, Chair, for all your hard work, not only on this community committee, but for the people of Morley South and the Outer South area for the very long time that you've been a councillor. And thank you really for your sterling work and for being always rising up a bit when it's got a bit heated in these meetings and keeping it running smoothly, and for being really the great communicator and great local representative that you are.
Right, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Robert, did you want to say something?
Really, it would me and you and the rest of my group rarely agree on anything whatsoever, and haven't agreed since 2011, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's almost a decade of disagreement. Having said that, it would be churlish for us not to recognise the fact that you put a lot of time and effort and energy in, and you have been a fair and reasonable chairman of this particular committee, and I think it would be incumbent on me to wish you a very long and very happy retirement outside the Morley Labour Party. So our best wishes follow you. Good luck with it all, Neil. All right,
well,
see you
thank
later,
you,
mate. Bye-bye.
I'm not leaving Morley Labour Party by any means. I'll still be a member of the Labour Party.
Everybody else is, Neil, so you might as well.
Well,
but
no, that's not true. We have more members than we've ever had.
I'm not sure that that's true with my information, but we'll debate that some other time.
Let me move on to Councillor Renshaw. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say thank you for all the hard work you've done, not only in the Outer South, not only in Morley, but on a citywide basis. You've been fair, you've put effort in, and I've known you for many, many years, and you've always been a true Socialist Labour Party person who was always been fair with other parties, listened and delivered. And I'd just like to say, I hope you have a very, very, put me up, very,
Right,
very happy and healthy retirement. But you're not really going into retirement, are you, Neil? So
well, I'm in a way.
we will
Yes,
continue.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, kind words. Thank you, everybody. Judith, I think, did you want to say something?
Neil, when I was mayor first time of Morley, you were
Yes.
deputy.
I was, yes.
And we had a very good association. We worked well together through the whole of the year, Neil. And I would like to say well done as chairman of this committee, and good that your health stood up and you look really well, and hope that you go ahead and progress and have a lovely life in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, Judith. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Councillor Kidd, you just want to say something as well?
We need a speech off you now, Chair.
If you can be brief, Wynne.
It's just to say, Neil, I know we've been opposites politically, but I just want to, admire you for how poor you were, and you've come back and you've persevered. And I just want to wish you a healthy and an enjoyable retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, can I thank everybody for the really kind words? I think Councillor Galton wants to chip in here. Stuart?
Yeah. Enjoy the rest, basically. We all were very concerned when you were really unwell, and it's been really encouraging to see your recovery over that time. And to be fair, once you've got a new lease on life, it's time to cash in sometimes and not waste 2 hours of it on meetings like this if you can manage it. So yes, have a nice retirement, and make sure you actually have one and you don't get told to deliver leaflets all the time.
Thank you, Stuart. Again, thank you, everybody. And I will miss the meetings, and I know we have a bit of argy-bargy, but I will miss the meetings, and I will miss everybody, really.
Yeah.
So I've had a good 10 years, but I do think we need to wrap up the meeting. So I would like to go on to agenda item 13 and hand over to Andy Booth to take us through the dates for next year. It won't concern me, but we may, well, I may still attend some meetings.
Right, thank you, Chair. The report's basically asking members to agree the proposed schedule of meetings for 21-22 municipal year. If you go to paragraph 8 on page 112, you'll see the next proposed meeting is for Monday 21st of June. These are followed on Monday the 27th of September, 22nd of November and 14th of March 2022. And it's proposed that meetings stay at 4 o'clock on a Monday. And those dates are basically based on the dates that we've met in the previous year. So are people happy to go along with those dates?
Will we accept those dates?
Yep, thank you. And as far as venues are concerned, on a meeting by meeting basis. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right,
Thank you, Andy. I'll just make one comment. The first meeting is the 21st of June, which will be the last day of restrictions.
Oh, good. Well, you never know.
It might be the last ever Zoom meeting. You never know.
I'm sure you'll be watching online, Neil.
I'll be watching online. Yes. Can I wrap up by saying thank you to everybody, and thank you for all the hard work that everybody else has done over the years and what you'll do in the future. It's also a pleasure to serve people in any capacity, I think. And I've always been proud to represent the Labour Party. I'm proud to represent the people of Morley. And I haven't gone quite yet. I mean, I'll be at the council meeting next week and hope to speak then, So wish everybody well,
And
I'm
you.
sure I'll see you all soon.
Okay.
So declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.